My name is Carlos Castresana. I am a public prosecutor in Spain, and currently I am the president of the Spanish Association of Human Rights. Universal jurisdiction is a remedy in order to provide justice in situations where impunity prevails. Because when we are talking about the most serious crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, it is a usual situation, the fact that in the very same place where the crime has been committed is where the conditions are not given for the prosecution and punishment of the perpetrators. Because in that territory, the perpetrator continued having this political influence, not permitting the courts of justice to give the victims the protection they deserve. This is because the international community, taking into account this reality, has given jurisdiction to other courts of justice different of those of the territory where the crime has been committed, in order to provide the protection that the victims do not find in the place when they were offended.
My name is Benedict de Morloz. I am heading a program at Trial International. Trial International is a Geneva-based NGO fighting impunity of the most serious crimes against humanity, war crimes and genocide. So universal jurisdiction is a principle, a legal principle that allow and sometimes oblige states to prosecute perpetrators present in their territories. We do proceedings, we build case files that we file before European jurisdictions and Switzerland against perpetrators of international crimes, and we defend victims of those crimes within the proceedings.
My name's Alex Presanti, and I'm an international lawyer and partner at Global Diligence LLP, a UK-based law firm. Unfortunately, international courts haven't really lived up to their promise, because many people fall through what's called the impunity gap, because the international courts don't have access to those people or to the evidence.
Universal jurisdiction it doesn't stop with the border. So it's about exercising investigations and trials, convictions even, of crimes who took place outside the country, and the involved parties, both the victim and the perpetrator, may not be nationals of that country. These crimes are so serious, so brutal, and so widespread and systematic that it concerns the whole humankind. So in a way, a country represents the whole earth or the whole community of human beings when it exercises jurisdiction in those cases.
The thing to remember is that universal jurisdiction, it really is country specific. In some countries, like the UK for example, victims have practically no role whatsoever. In countries like France, victims have the right to participate as civil parties, as full participants in trials. In Germany, it's somewhere in between. I think Germany at the moment has the most permissive universal jurisdiction law. The German authorities also seem to have an appetite for bringing universal jurisdiction cases at the moment.
Universal jurisdiction is very affected by the political environment in every situation. Spain was a very young democracy with a very broad and generous framework of universal jurisdiction, providing protection for victims in the 90s and in the early 2000s from Argentina, from Chile, from El Salvador, Guatemala, and many other places. When we came to the case of Guantanamo, the first legal amendment was reducing the framework of universal jurisdiction, and a few years later, the second case about the genocide in Tibet reduced even more. Now we have a very limited jurisdictional framework, considering only the cases where there are Spanish victims or Spanish perpetrators. But I hope that sooner or later the political conditions will change and we will be able to have a more generous framework again.
Yesterday we had a very important ruling in the case against the former chief of police of Guatemala, who was accused of killing 7 prisoners in a prison in Guatemala in 2006. So Mr. Sperisen, his name is Mr. Sperisen, left the country to Switzerland because he has also a Swiss nationality. and he was probably thinking that he was seeking safe haven in Switzerland. But since 2008, with partner organizations from Guatemala and from Switzerland, we managed to build the case and to present the case before the authorities. It was a very long case, very hard fight also, but eventually the Supreme Court of Switzerland just upheld his convictions to 50 years in prison. So that's a very important ruling for the victims of those crimes who've been waiting for justice for so long. And it's also an important sign for perpetrators of international crimes. Even if they've committed crimes 10, 15, 20 years ago, justice also might prevail, and their crimes will not stand in impunity.
We had universal jurisdiction cases before from Rwanda and from former Yugoslavia, and also some extradition cases. But this is the first case where the link to Norway is that the victims, the torture survivors, live in Norway. And there is a provision in Norwegian law that allows for exercising jurisdiction when the victim is in Norway and the crime is serious to have at least 6 years imprisonment. But when we only have the victims in the country and we don't expect the suspects to be handed over to Norway, what we will end up with is probably international arrest warrants, red alert in Interpol. And the effect on the suspects will be that they probably will think twice before they travel to Europe or Northern America and some other parts of the world where they can be extradited to Norway.
So we see those years that there is an increase of successful trials in universal jurisdiction. So it shows that it's possible to bring trials, to bring prosecutions in other countries than the countries where the crimes occur. It means also for the victims that when they are not able to seek redress in their own country, there is a possibility to bring the cases elsewhere when the legal conditions are fulfilled. So it's a very important case. You have detractors that say, no, it's not possible to judge crimes committed in another country, but we show with this case and with others that it's not true, that actually you can have a fair trial where the defense rights, and it's very important, are respected, and that lead to a conviction and to an important conviction.